Hello students, welcome to Turito live classes. Myself A. Swagat. In today's discussion, we will be having an understanding of transportation which occurs in plants. So, how does it happens? That is what we are going to look here in this particular session. So, let us move forward. Looking here, so we are going to understand the very same topic, that is transportation in plants. Now, before doing that, let us look at the topics what we have already dealt in the previous session. Starting with the first point. So, in the previous session, we were having a detailed understanding of the meaning of the word glycolysis, right. So, in the previous session, we understood that glyco refers to sweet and lysis is something to do with splitting. Right. And can anyone tell me where did this word originated from? Okay, correct. So, it is quite simple. So, I see many of you are responding to that. It has been originated from the Greek language. Okay. So, this we did, and we understood the different features of the glycolysis what we have done earlier. Okay. And you know it takes place in the cytosol of the cell, right. So, can anyone tell me what is your understanding about cytosol? What is cytosol? Cytosol. Okay, I see answers dropping in the chat boxes. Okay. So, that is a clue for you. So, if you split that particular word cytosol, we will understand that cyto refers to cell, okay, and sol refers to solution. Cytosol. Okay. That is what is cell or solution. So, cell solution. So, do you know how did we get to that cytosol? Do you remember what we have done? Okay, let us see here the cell and the solution, right. So, if you forget that, let me remind you, it is quite simple. So, we have cytoplasm, okay, and from the cytoplasm if you remove all the organelles, you get to have cytosol. So, remove all the organelles from the cytoplasm, whatever is remaining would be our cytosol. So, that is the exact location where we saw the glycolysis occurring. So, it is nothing but splitting of the carbohydrate. The simplest carbohydrate what we were discussing is glucose. So, glucose will be splitting in cytosol. So, what is the product after when the glucose splits up? Correct. So, yes. So, I see many of you dropping the answers. So, when you see that glucose, okay, when it undergoes glycolysis, it is splitting into two components of pyruvic acid, right. So, we saw the glucose when it splits out, we saw it is turning itself into two molecules of pyruvic acid, right. So, if you remember, this glucose was a 6 carbon molecule and there are 2 pyruvate, each of them are having 3 carbon molecules. So, multiplied by 2, so because it forms 2 pyruvic acid molecules, that is what we learnt in the previous session, right. So, now let us see. So, that is the very same reaction which I have just shown you, that is detailed chemical reaction, we saw that to analyze the glycolysis process. So, this is what does in the previous session. Okay. And then we saw different ways of conversion of the pyruvic acids, how glucose is turning itself into pyruvic acid we saw, and then we saw the pyruvic acid conversion that leads to the formation of energy, right. So, that was alcoholic fermentation, lactic acid fermentation and aerobic respiration. These were the 3 different ways how the pyruvic acid was converting itself. And today's session we are beginning with the understanding of the complex tissue, complex permanent tissues. Okay. So, that will be the briefing what we will be doing using the flow chart, followed by structural components of the component tissues. So, we will also look into the components or the basic elements which form those complex permanent tissues. That is what we will be looking in the components of the structural components of the component tissues. Sorry, that should be complex tissues. followed by analyzing the direction of transportation in plants using these complex tissues. So, we will be analyzing the direction of transportation in plants using the very same complex tissues. So, we will look into their structure and we will understand how they are functioning. So, what is that they have within themselves and they are functioning like that. And we will also explore the means of transportation in plants. So, we will look into the tissues which are helping in transportation. Okay. We will also understand their structure. We will see how many of them are available in each of them. We will understand the direction in which they are functioning, and finally, we will look into the various methods of transportation usually performed by the plant. So, within the plant excuse me. So, within the plants we will understand that how these plants are transporting the components within themselves, right. So, that is what is all about transportation in plants. So, before we could go into the details, what do you know about transportation in plants? How does it occurs? Please drop in the chat boxes. I would like to hear from you all. Put your answers in the chat box. I will try to assist them. So, how it occurs, or at least you can tell me when, which was the time when you firstly heard about this transportation of plants for the first time. So, if you remember, it should be in grade 6th, right, the first time, and then when time passed on we started understanding them bit more in 7th, okay. And later if you remember, we did understand the same topic in class 9th in detail, transportation in plants. So, certainly when you come across the same topic in these 3 years, certainly you cannot say no, right. So, I see many of you are dropping the responses saying that conducting vessels, okay, correct. Some of you are saying that they are vascular bundles, okay. And I also read out that there are students dropping in saying xylem and phloem, okay, correct. So, you all are to the point. So, you are saying conducting vessels we first come across in grade 6th, okay. We may also read the vascular bundles in this point of time, and when it comes to xylem and phloem, to be more specific about their components and how do they function, we come across in this particular class, right. So, you have to understand one thing, children, whenever we are going through some of the topics, make sure you know the basics of those topics which you are supposed to learn in the lower grades. For example, this particular topic. So, if you are able to establish that link between the topics of different grades, that would make the things quite easy, right. That is the reason why you are to answer the questions which you have already learned earlier, that is why. So, these are the topics what you have known so far, and you might also be knowing, at least some of you, this guy is involved, that is xylem is involved in transportation of water. So, within the water it also sees that minerals would be dissolved in there, right. And if you remember in class 9th when you were going through the topic of the tissues of the plants from the chapter tissues, if you remember, so there you might have gone through the topic plant tissues. There are so many types of plant tissues there are. When it comes to phloem, it is one of the very complex permanent tissue. So, that complex permanent tissue, that is phloem I am speaking about, if you understand that, that is not mainly involved in water and mineral transport, that is mainly involved in transportation of photosynthetic products. Of course, that has to be done using water in which all these components are dissolved. So, that when you cut a stem of a plant, you see water will be oozing out of that plant. So, if you cut a stem of a plant, a small plant, you see that water will be oozing out of that plant. That water like fluid what you see, that is actually sap, okay. So, there is a link between phloem and the sap. The movement of this watery substance from the bottom of the plant to the topmost part of the plant is known as, hope you remember this, ascent of sap, which is known as translocation. So, that is what I was meaning to. So, these are the topics which you are supposed to know by now when we are discussing transportation in plants. Hope you have remembered what I have just discussed, and we were done, this would have done earlier in the previous sessions. Okay. So, if we move forward, you will get to see this, that is water and minerals and photosynthetic products are transported, right. So, they are the components which are transported throughout the plant. So, you know this, nothing new to you. So, you see that uptake and release of water and solute by individual cells also occurs, as well as by the specific tissues. So, this transportation happens between cell to cell. Do you agree with that? Transportation in plants happens between cell to cell. Do you agree with that? Yes. So, can you tell me how does it occurs? Transportation in plants between cell to cells, how it happens? Yeah, I see some of you saying that diffusion, and some of you are saying that osmosis. Understood? Okay, so you have an awareness of that, because we did discuss this in previous sessions sometime, even in class 9th we have discussed. Okay. So, diffusion, osmosis, okay, that is not at all wrong, that does happen. Okay. Let us move forward again. So, do you know this one? So, we just discussed. So, transportation occurs in plants not only between cell to cells, it also occurs from xylem and phloem, right. So, these are the vascular bundles, if you remember. These are the vascular bundles, got it. So, when these are the vascular bundles and you just understood that, so they are higher order cellular arrangement, so which makes them as tissues. So, what kind of tissues are they? They are complex tissues, they are really complex tissues, you must understand them. Okay. So, they are complex tissues. So, this is in short what we are going to understand in this whole session. Okay. So, let us see this complex permanent tissues. So, when it comes to complex permanent tissues, you have to understand one thing, xylem, okay, it is mainly involved in transportation of water and minerals, okay, see water and minerals only in the upper direction, which means it takes care of the nutrient water and mineral or nutrient uptake from roots to shoots. Shoots in the sense stem, the topmost part of the plant. So, xylem is involved in doing that. Okay. Here if you observe carefully, phloem, it goes from up and down, right and left, everywhere throughout the plant. That is why it is mentioned like this. So, if you see, it transports photosynthetic products. So, when it is said that it transports photosynthetic products, so you must ensure one thing. Do you think it is also functioning in the same way roots to shoot, that is phloem? Certainly not, right. I see some of you are saying yes, but just listen to me. We are discussing that phloem carries the it carries the photosynthetic products. So, what are those photosynthetic products? Yes, I see some of you dropping in as glucose, starch, okay, correct. So, basically photosynthetic products are nothing but food to the plant. Do you agree that it is basically the food of the plant, right, the photosynthetic products. So, when it is the food of the plant, do you think only from roots to shoot or shoots to root, if it goes, the thing is done? Yes, yes, absolutely. So, what you are answering it as no is the correct answer. So, not only from roots to shoot, you see the photosynthetic products are made in which organ of the plant? Photosynthesis occurs in which organ of the plant? Right. So, as you are dropping in, it is leaves. So, in the leaves this thing occurs, quite simple, right. So, those parts of the plant which have chlorophyll within them, they have this ability to make food for the plant. Now, when that is happening there, it is not only from root to shoot like thing here, it is actually starting from the leaves to each and every part of the plant, irrespective of it, wherever it is available. Even inside the roots the food is going, otherwise you cannot expect that the plant to function properly. Okay. So, that happens, it goes up and down and every other parts of the plant. Okay. So, hope you understood that. So, when it has to pass on from the roots, that is xylem, if it has to take care of the water and mineral movement within the plant, that too from root to shoots, you have to understand one thing, that it does with the help of the its respective elements. So, if you see, there are sort of elements, you can see them clearly, starting with xylem tracheids, xylem vessels, xylem parenchyma, xylem fibers. These are the 4 basic components or the elements which actually make the xylem, and this xylem is a complex permanent tissue, right. Hope you are aware of it. Now, you understood whatever you have learnt in grade 9th is again coming up here, we have to understand that. So, when it comes to the phloem, if you observe, it also have to transport all the substances throughout the plant. Okay. If it has to do that, you observe carefully, it also has the basic elements which makes up the phloem, that is all these elements that combine together, that makes the complex tissue, that is phloem. You see, sieve tubes, companion cells, phloem parenchyma, phloem fibers. So, these are the components required by the plant, and you see that makes up the whole system of phloem, and phloem is mainly involved in transportation of photosynthetic products. So, this justifies that why it is a complex permanent tissue. Hope you are clear with this. So, these are all basics, but still I want you to understand in detail, right. That is why I was explaining you. So, this is what is occurring in the complex permanent tissue. Now, you see, so here I would like to show you translocation. I just told you what is translocation, right. Can anyone recall it and mention in the chat box what is translocation? Okay, correct. So, some of you are saying it quite simply. I would like to write on the screen here. Let us observe. Some say it is movement of sap. Okay, correct. Some say it is the movement of photosynthetic products. Some say it is the movement of photosynthetic products, correct. And you see, so it is not only about this movement of sap or something. So, it is mainly known as it occurs throughout the plant. So, this movement of what you are saying, it occurs throughout the plant, that is also mentioned in the chat box by some of the students. So, you see here, that is basically ascent of sap. So, that ascent of sap throughout the part of the plant. So, normally it has to go from bottom of the plant to the upper part of the plant also, right. So, it goes throughout the plant and we understand that process is to be translocation, right. So, I want to show you something. So, if you see here, translocation is the movement of water and other nutrients from soil to all parts of the plant. So, like you mentioned, bottom to the uppermost plant, movement of photosynthetic products, movement of sap. So, everything includes. So, basically it involves not only water, but also the nutrients what is generated there. So, you see they are taking up from the, ultimately the nutrients are taken from the water, and that nutrients are present in the soil. So, those nutrients get combined with the water and that comes up to the plant. So, when it is taking up, you see that there is a big of the story happening out here, right. So, this is a structure to make us understand in brief of the phloem, xylem and phloem, happens to be the complex tissue. If you observe, this is the one which is carrying in one direction. So, what could be this? What is the name of this tissue shown here? Okay, correct. So, as you have rightly spotted, it is actually xylem, right. I see some of you are still confused how we came to this conclusion. You see, it is actually taking care of movement in one direction, one way flow, you see, and it is carrying water and minerals, and there is a continuous tube like arrangement available, you see. So, it is one way flow, it is taking care of water and minerals, and there are no end walls available here. Okay. So, these are the main prominent features of the xylem. Now, if you try to observe in the case of phloem, you see first thing, two way flow, both the directions up and down. If you remember the flow chart what I have shown you, it is actually in link with that, and you see that the water and food are taking care in this movement up and down, and after that you see specific end walls with perforations. So, can you see that? Can you see this kind of plate is available here? That is the prominent character exclusively present in the case of phloem. Understood? That is the prominent character. So, you see that phloem is mentioned in this manner. So, it has to happen like that, because you see the two way transportation, and it is not only taking care of the movement of water and minerals, it is actually taking care of much more than that, water and food, the photosynthetic products. So, if you observe this food, I am referring here as photosynthetic products. So, you see this one shows that, I will show you in this particular plant it is shown. So, this red color movement what is shown here is only the movement of So, this red color one is showing us the movement of water and mineral. You see it is flowing through different parts, goes to leaf, shoot, stem, everywhere, because that is containing only water and mineral, nothing else is available in that. Now, when it comes to this, what is this? It contains photosynthetic products, the products which are formed because of the photosynthesis process, and that is what we call it as, these products as the food. Hope you understood that. That is what we know it as food. Now, if you observe, you know, when it is forming here, okay, this one also needs food. Apart from that, the food is taken to the roots, you see there, and then you see the food is taken to the topmost part again. So, what I am telling you was quite simple. It is a two-way process occurring because of this phloem, and when the food is made in each and every leaf, so it is not only this leaf, there are other leaves also, right. Each of these leaves you see, they all are making the food, they all have phloem, okay, they do have xylem, they have all other tissues. So, when the food is made in these leaves, it is obviously that they have to send that respectively made food to each and every part of the plant. You see, we see them as different organs, but still they all are functioning as a single unit. Okay? So, that is what we have to understand. So, when they are trying to function as a single unit, you must ensure that these are the topics what we have to understand for today. So, let us move forward. So, you see direction, of course, you have known by now what kind of directions they are having in their work, that is quite clear. You see, direction of transport is essential for survival of plants. So, xylem mainly functions unidirectionally, single direction, that is from roots to shoots. Okay. Roots to shoots. Okay. When it comes to phloem, it functions multidirectionally, or in other words bidirectionally, that is what you have seen. So, you see it is functioning not only from one direction, leaves to all parts. So, it carries the photosynthetic products from leaves to all parts of the plant. Let it be root, let it be a flower, let it be a bud, let it be a twig or any leaf, any branch, everywhere. So, that is the function. So, minerals need to flow multidirectionally. Of course, minerals are needed to flow multidirectionally because there are leaves everywhere and using them they make the food, right. So, not only that, this phloem is also involved in taking care of the movement of plant growth regulators. These are those chemicals which help the plant in its growth and development. And plants also have hormones, they do have chemical stimuli, are also transported unidirectionally. So, if there is a need of a chemical in a raw fruit, unripened fruit, it is on the plant already. Okay. So, there is some chemicals are needed so that it will turn itself into a ripened one, right. So, that is also we need it, that will be sending from the respective part of the plant to the respective part. So, it depends. So, it is one direction only. So, this is more important, and here it is mentioned as hormones. Do we have any name for those hormones? Can you guess? Okay, that is quite simple. So, these hormones are basically known as phytohormones. Okay. So, instead of saying plant hormones, we have to say them as phytohormones. Got it? So, there are different means of transportation we have. So, we do have different means of transportation for the plants. So, hope by now you might have understood in brief about the topic of complex tissues, what we have, complex permanent tissues, and what are the components of each of them, and then we discussed about the structure of the complex permanent tissues and how they are helping in transportation of respective components like water and minerals, photosynthetic products and all them, right. So, here you saw direction of the transportation, that is also clear to us. Now, we are to see using a flow chart means of transportation in plants. Do you know how does it happens in plants? Any guesses? Come on, think of it, how it happens in plants, means of transportation. So, by looking at it, you am sure that there are three ways, and I see you are saying the answers as xylem, phloem. I got this one anyway because we did discuss, that is why you are saying. Okay, I got one more response from you. Some of you are saying that it is osmosis. Okay, okay. So, let us see diffusion, facilitated diffusion and active transport. So, what you said is correct. Okay. So, we have to add diffusion as a process also, because we just discussed that in the first slide when we were discussing this topic whole, right. So, these are the main processes. You see the diffusion, facilitated diffusion, active transport. Okay children, I have a doubt here. Can you clarify that doubt? Which of the one will be having, get the work done with the expense of energy? With the expense of energy, I said. Guess? So, you see it is actually active transport. Understood? So, it is quite simple that it is actually the active transport where you see that it is needed with energy. How about diffusion and facilitated diffusion? Okay, I see responses saying that, sir, what is diffusion? Okay, fine, let us move forward, then we will see what is that. So, diffusion, if you see, it is quite simple. Diffusion also you have learnt in the previous sessions in the lower classes. I will tell you what is diffusion. You are sitting in your living room, we are watching TV, okay, and something is cooked in your kitchen. Okay. By sitting at your living room, you can find out what is cooking in your kitchen. How does this happen? Any guesses? Okay, you are using the word that smell. Okay, fine. Aroma. Okay, correct. So, you said smell, or we do get the beautiful word that is aroma, right. So, that makes you understand that this is what is cooked, or you may say that this is a possibility, this is what is being cooked probably, right. So, this sensing of smell, how did you get that? Because of some of the vapors coming to you when you are at the living room, you can sense it. That is what is diffusion, that is a daily process. For example, if you are using a deodorant or a body deo and the perfumes whatever you use, okay. Well, my experience, I want to share it with you children. When I was in school, okay, when I was in army school, and I saw that we used to sit for just next to the way. So, before the starting of our assembly and all, that. So, what used to happen is we used to sit there for a while, and then when we get a call, and we used to go for the assembly and doing all those stuffs. So, before doing that, we used to see like one of our teacher used to go in front of us, okay, and we used to understand, even if we are like closing our eyes, we will understand, okay, which teacher has passed from this region. So, we used to try that. So, that is actually happening because the teacher used to have a specific perfume used, right, and using that perfume we used to make out, okay, whether this teacher is available in the school or not, if so, whether we have done the homeworks or not. So, this kind of stuffs we used to do. So, that is the result of this diffusion. And you are sitting in your kitchen, sorry, you are sitting in your living room and you sense what is cooked in the kitchen, that is diffusion. If you put a drop of ink in the beaker and it spreads throughout the beaker, you might have done this, some of you might be doing even now, that is what is diffusion. So, it is a movement of molecules from the region of the higher concentration to the region of the lower concentration, right. So, it is not only confined to liquid, I said, not only confined to gas, like when you are sitting in your living room and you can sense what is cooked in your kitchen, or like me sensing the kind of perfume of my teacher, and I sense like this particular teacher is available in the school. That all is the result of the process of diffusion. It is not only confined to solute or solvent, it is for both, okay, it is for both, and it also includes all the three states of matter, that is solids, liquids and gases. So, that is how it happens. So, this is what I was telling about diffusion. So, it is quite clear to us. I will let you know what it is actually. So, this is a drop of ink, okay. I took a beaker and into which I put some water. Let us say the beaker was around 100 ml of beaker, okay. So, in the 100 ml of beaker, there was only distilled water available, and I took a dropper and at time t1 I put a drop of ink in that bottle, sorry, in that beaker. What kind of ink? That was a red color ink. And at time t2, let us say, So, remember this thing by the way children, T2 is always greater than T1 here, okay, and you can understand that this ink what you are seeing here, as you see it is evenly spread, right, it is evenly spread from different parts of the body, got it. Now, you have to understand that this is what is diffusion. After some point of time, this expansion from this confined region to throughout the body of the beaker into that water is what is diffusion. So, this is not only confined to like solid liquid gases, it is for this is happening having no bar, no restrictions, it just happens, there is no membrane or no wall or nothing is available here. So, this is what is diffusion. So, in case I wanted you to know, because if you forget what that is. Okay. Nextly, I would like to show you this osmosis. So, before doing that, can you tell me what is osmosis? Because some of you have already answered it. You gave the transportation occurs with the help of osmosis, you said. Can you answer what is osmosis? Okay, I see some of you saying that movement of substance, okay, it would move from the region of the higher concentration to the region of the lower concentration, and you say something special, that is SPM, that is semi permeable membrane. It is good, it is really good that you do not know anything, it is not like that, you really know a lot of stuff and you are responding to the questions, that is very good. So, you see, so it is the movement of the substance from the region of the higher concentration to the lower concentration through SPM, that is semi permeable membrane. Now, one doubt I have, when you are saying substance, what exactly you mean children, please respond to that. What exactly you mean about the substance? Yes. Okay. So, what you are saying is absolutely right. You are saying that it is about solvent, and I see a student is particularly mentioning about water. So, yes. So, we see water as one of the fine solvent. So, it is only the movement of the solvent, okay, and that solvent has to be a liquid. So, this osmosis is confined to liquid only the movement of solvent, understood, the movement is only with the solvent, and this is what it is. So, I would like to show you this, okay. Let us wipe out the screen and we will see what we have for you. So, movement of solvent, particularly water, across a semi permeable membrane, like you mentioned, semi permeable membrane, from the region of high to a low solvent concentration. In other words, from a region of higher solvent concentration to a region of lower solvent concentration through a semi permeable membrane. Instead of writing this, sometimes you read it as SPM in some of the publications. So, only solvent, like I mentioned, and this is what happens. So, you observe here again, I would like to tell you. So, let us say this is region A and region B, and even in that image it stands the same, region A and region B, and you know that is separated by a membrane called semi permeable membrane, which is SPM, got it. So, that is what is SPM, very clearly mentioned. Now, what I want you to understand is, it is because it is the semi permeable membrane, and let us start again with this. So, there are so many things available. At time t1, it was like this, you see, region A, region B, okay. It is having solvent, that is water, in both the region in same level, So, solvent in both the regions is at the same level at time t1, got it. And when you see when time went on at time t2, so I have to mention that condition here again, that is t2 is greater than t1, obviously time has to pass. So, t2 is obviously greater than t1. Now, what you have to understand here is from the region A you see solvent has moved to the region B, but look at the solute, solute stood same. So, you look at the, let us count here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, approximately 6. You see here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Solute was same, but what you see is when time t1 in the region A of the beaker, the water level was still here. At a time t2, you see the water level increased in B and the solute remained same. Because the movement happened through SPM, this kind of movement of solvent from the region of higher concentration through the region to the region of lower concentration through SPM, that is a semi permeable membrane, we call that process as osmosis. Got it? That is quite simple to understand, is not it? So, hope you understood this process. In the upcoming session, our discussion would be more confined to this particular flow chart, that is means of transportation. So, that is what we will be doing in the upcoming session. Make sure children you will be going with the topics, just brush up the discussions what we had now and get back to the session, we will learn more. So, this is the end of today's session, where finally we would be revising or summarizing the topics what we have already dealt. So, we looked at the briefing on the complex permanent tissues. We explored its specialized structural components, where we understood how many components are present and how they are functioning. Followed by we saw the directions in which these components transport the substances in the plants. Followed by looked at the various means of transportation in plants, right. So, this is what we understood. So, hope you understood this session. You can get back to me with the doubts in the upcoming session, and for now I would like to thank you.